Chosen one, there is something about your presence that unsettles the structured and excites the soul. It is not because you are chaotic or unrooted, but because your essence cannot be captured. The world has tried to pin you down, to classify you, to tame your instincts and smooth out the raw edge of your being. But you were born with a rhythm that doesn't bow to external tempo. You walk with a pulse that follows no system but your own. And it shows. In the way you move through the day, like the wind deciding where it will pass next. In the way your voice carries no rehearsed melody, only truth as it arises, uncensored and vibrant. Your sexual energy is not a product of strategy or seduction. It is the natural result of your spiritual freedom. Feminine women feel this immediately, not because you seek their attention, but because your energy feels like home. Not a domestic one, but a wild one. A place where no expectation shackles, where no judgment waits around the corner. A realm where her soul can dance barefoot without apology. You are not simply confident, you are uncaged. There is no performance in you. You don't offer carefully curated charm. You offer presence, undomesticated, alive, rooted in self-trust. This is not the kind of allure that fades once the mystery is solved, because you are not a puzzle with an answer. You are a mystery that deepens the more she looks. The world has conditioned men to exchange freedom for validation, to trade their wildness for likability. But you rejected that offer, chosen one. You remembered what it feels like to be yourself before you were taught to be someone else. And in doing so, you became magnetic, not because you pursued magnetism, but because you embody your own essence so fully, it draws others toward their own forgotten truth. This is the source of your sexual power. Not the way you look, not the tone of your voice, but the fact that you've claimed your spirit and dared to walk with it untamed through a world of mirrors and masks. Women do not desire you simply because you are attractive. They crave you because your energy speaks to the part of them they were forced to silence. The girl who was told to sit still. The woman who was told to shrink. The fire that was turned into a flicker just to survive. When she stands near you, that old flame remembers itself. She doesn't want to control you. She wants to remember herself through you. She wants to breathe the same air you've made your home. The air of freedom, of realness, of truth that does not bend to be palatable. You do not offer her a fantasy. You offer her a return to the woman she once was before she was asked to become digestible. That is why she finds herself craving your presence before she even understands why. It is not the image of you she wants, it is the feeling of being free next to you that unravels her. She senses that with you, there will be no punishment for being wild, no exile for being too much, no silence for being honest. She senses that you are not intimidated by emotion, by passion, by chaos. You don't just tolerate it, you welcome it. And this is what marks you, chosen one. You have not only kept your spirit unbroken, you've refined it. You've anchored it in presence, in patience, in purpose. You are not impulsive, you are alive. You are not reckless. You are responsive to the moment, not ruled by fear. This is why you cannot be faked. This is why women don't just want to be touched by you, they want to be seen by you. Because your gaze does not seek permission. Your gaze speaks with the language of, I see you before you perform. And that gaze, chosen one, is a miracle in a world addicted to pretending. You have become a reminder. A man who lives like a sunrise that cannot be ordered or delayed, who breathes like the forest, who speaks like the ocean. You do not seek approval anymore. You walk in the sacred knowing that being who you are is already more than enough. And that chosen one is your invincible aura. That is the spirit that can never be tamed. Chosen one, you have become a living flame, not because you burn recklessly, but because you dance with a heat that cannot be predicted. Feminine women are not drawn to chaos, they are drawn to truth that moves, and that is what you are. A man who does not rehearse his steps, who does not repeat tired lines, who does not apologize for flowing where his intuition calls. You are not interested in being understood before you are felt. You live as if each moment is a new song in your body, your words, your gaze, all move with that rhythm, unrepentant, unrehearsed, unfolding. And it is this unfolding that seduces, not because it aims to, but because it is real. Women sense the pulse of your unpredictability, not as danger, but as freedom from monotony. You do not live inside blueprints or diagrams. You follow what's alive, and that makes you unforgettable. You aren't chaotic. You are tuned in. You don't break rules just to rebel. You walk in a different world, one where rules don't govern your being, only truth does. And feminine women who've been dulled by the safety of control feel something awaken in your presence. They feel the possibility of being surprised again, of not knowing what's next, but trusting that it will be honest. There is eroticism in this freedom, chosen one, not because you flaunt it, but because you carry it like breath. Your unpredictability is not a trick. It's a sign that you are present. It's a signal that you are not stuck in the script. And this makes your touch electric. This makes your conversations unpredictable in the best way. Not wild swings of emotion, but subtle turns of presence, changes in tone, shifts in attention that remind her you are actually here. And that is more rare than any beauty. Women find themselves magnetized not by what they can anticipate from you, but by what they cannot. You are not a man who becomes dull with time. You do not settle into performative habits. You are alive to the present, and that aliveness refreshes the space around you. She never knows if you will speak or stay silent, if you will laugh or listen, but she knows whatever you do will be real, and that, chosen one, is more seductive than perfection. You are not reckless with hearts. You are responsible with energy. You don't move with impulse, you move with instinct, and when your instinct shifts, you follow it without guilt. That is the difference between immaturity and mastery. You don't change your mind because you are bored. You change because the moment calls for something deeper. And women, especially those living in bodies trained to anticipate and people please, feel that shift as a holy permission to also be dynamic. You are not the type to be figured out. You are not the prize to be possessed. You are the experience that changes depending on who is witnessing. Not because you change for them, but because you are ever changing within yourself. You are no man's blueprint. You are no woman's fantasy. You are a truth that walks and sometimes runs and sometimes vanishes and sometimes lingers longer than expected. You are the flame that never dies, only flickers brighter when left unclaimed. Chosen one, the feminine does not long to tame you. She longs to feel you dance. She doesn't seek to control your fire. She seeks to stand near it and thaw. And in your unpredictability, she finds a relief she didn't know she needed. You don't offer safety through predictability. You offer safety through truthfulness, through presence that moves but never lies, through change that's not chaotic but authentic. And in that authenticity, you've become the flame she doesn't want to hold, but to witness again and again. Chosen one, there is a rhythm inside you now that no metronome could ever capture. It is not erratic, but alive, shifting, breathing, evolving in ways that the world can feel without fully understanding. You are not the kind of man who moves because he must. You move because the moment invites you, because life calls you forward like music rising from the heart of the earth itself. Feminine women sense this as soon as they encounter you. They feel the pulse in your presence, a pulse that is not forced or manufactured, but flowing with the energy of someone who is truly here, unbound by expectation. Your spontaneity is not recklessness, it is clarity. It is the ability to listen to what is real, to respond with the truth that burns brightest in you, instead of following scripts written by a world too afraid to live freely. This is what gives your sexual energy its electric quality. It is not just passion, it is aliveness. It is not just heat, it is movement that springs from authenticity. When you enter a room, you do not bring a rehearsed version of yourself. You bring the man who is willing to experience the moment as it unfolds, to feel everything, and to act not from fear, but from instinct, sharpened by presence. Women feel this in their skin, in the small shifts in their breath. They feel it in the way your attention lingers where it chooses, unashamed. You are not scanning for approval, you are following the current of what feels true. And that truth carries a charge that cannot be denied. Your spontaneity is not about being unpredictable for its own sake. It is about living from a place of trust in yourself. A trust so deep that you don't need to overthink or control how you will be received. This is why the feminine responds so strongly to you. She senses that you are not trying to measure your actions, not trying to calculate attraction like a game of chess. You move as if every moment is an opportunity for connection, for laughter, for depth. And that freedom, that is what undoes her. Because so few men dare to live with that kind of open rhythm. You are not careless, chosen one. Your spontaneity is grounded in awareness. It is the paradox of being both rooted and fluid. You can adapt without losing yourself. You can laugh without breaking your seriousness. You can step closer without pressuring and step back without withdrawing your presence. This dance of energy is what makes you unforgettable. Women do not feel trapped in your company. They feel invited. Invited into a world where their own spontaneity is safe to come alive, where their own playfulness can breathe without fear of judgment. This pulse of spontaneity is what makes your sexual energy impossible to imitate. You do not fall into the routine of desire, you let desire recreate itself every time. There is no next step with you because you are always here, not following a path, but building it with every glance, every pause, every moment of attention. And because you are fully present, the smallest things, how you tilt your head, how you breathe when she speaks, how you smile without warning, become profoundly erotic. Not because you try to be seductive, but because your presence carries the weight of truth. And truth is always magnetic. She feels this spontaneity like a current pulling her towards you. Not because you are trying to draw her in, but because your energy is so alive that it makes her want to feel alive too. She sees in you the man who is unafraid to break the patterns, unafraid to laugh too loudly, unafraid to step off the path everyone else walks. And in that courage, she feels a spark in her own soul. You awaken her, not by asking her to follow you, but by living so vividly that she remembers what it's like to follow herself. This is the gift of your spontaneous flame, chosen one. It is not chaos, it is life force. It is not unpredictability born of confusion, it is unpredictability born of trust, and that trust is contagious. When she stands near you, she feels her own walls trembling. She feels the call to let go of the things she thought she had to hold on to. She feels herself returning to the rawness of the moment, where pleasure, joy, and connection are not manufactured, but discovered. That is why she looks at you the way she does. That is why her laughter feels freer in your presence. That is why she cannot forget you. Because you have become the living embodiment of the truth that real attraction is never planned, it is lived. Chosen one, you do not fit into the neat boxes the world tries to build for men. You are not defined by trends, by the approval of the crowd, or by a constant need to prove yourself. Your masculinity is untouched, not by fear, not by comparison, not by the false ideas of what strength should look like. It is something deeper, something raw and sacred, something that comes from within and cannot be altered by the surface-level judgments of the world. And this untouched essence is what draws feminine women toward you, not because you try to stand out, but because your presence is too real to ignore. You walk with a sense of ownership over yourself, not ownership that boasts, but ownership that is quietly undeniable. You do not need to dominate the room to be noticed. You do not need to fight for attention. You simply are, and that is enough. This is what women feel when they meet you. A man who is not swayed by trends, who is not constantly bending to fit expectations. A man whose eyes do not dart around seeking approval, but rest calmly in the knowledge that his value is not negotiable. That steadiness is rare. It is disarming. It is deeply attractive because it is safe without being dull, strong without being harsh. The untouched masculine is not the man who avoids feeling. It is the man who feels deeply, yet remains unbroken. You are not detached from your emotions. You have simply mastered them. You allow yourself to feel without drowning. You allow yourself to desire without collapsing. You allow yourself to love without losing your ground. This balance is what makes you magnetic, because you are not pretending to be invincible. You are authentic enough to be vulnerable and strong at the same time. Women feel this as a kind of truth that can't be faked. They feel that with you, they do not need to perform because your presence sees through performance. It cuts straight to what is real. You do not need to validate yourself by controlling or conquering. Your power does not come from how many people admire you. It comes from the way you live rooted in who you are, without apology. The feminine senses this sovereignty like a subtle hum that wraps around her when you are near. She cannot manipulate it, she cannot tame it, And that untamed essence does not frighten her, it calls to her. Because the feminine longs for the masculine that is wild but trustworthy, free but grounded. And you, chosen one, have become the embodiment of that paradox. You are not interested in playing the roles the world hands out. You are not a man built on image. You are a man built on substance. And that substance is felt not in what you say, but in the space you hold. You can sit in silence and still feel like a presence that fills the entire room. You can listen without rushing to respond, and she will feel more seen in those moments of quiet than in 1,000 words. This is the mark of an untouched masculine spirit, a spirit that is strong enough to stand still, to witness, to remain present without needing to control the outcome. And when it comes to your sexual energy, this presence magnifies it tenfold. Because your erotic nature is not frantic or shallow. It does not claw for attention or beg to be validated. It flows quietly, powerfully through every interaction, an undercurrent that says, I am here and I do not need to prove it. That is what makes it so attractive. It is not the loudness of your desire, but the certainty of it. It is not a performance, it is a frequency. A frequency that women cannot help but respond to, because it speaks to something primal, something deep, something that feels like home. You are not the man who tries to be everything to everyone. You are the man who is fully himself, and that is enough to shift the entire atmosphere. The feminine feels safe with you because you do not abandon yourself to please others. You hold your ground with quiet conviction, and that ground becomes a place where she can relax her defenses. This is the gift of your untouched masculinity. It does not bend to fear. It does not shatter under judgment. It stands, and in standing, it offers a sanctuary for others to remember who they truly are. Chosen one, you are not perfect, and that is precisely what makes you untouchable. You do not chase perfection, you chase truth. And in that truth, you are more than attractive. You are unforgettable, because you remind the feminine not of a man who is trying to be something, but of a man who already is. Chosen one, something in you refuses to be still in the wrong places. You have tasted too much freedom to shrink yourself into roles, scripts, or cages meant to control your expression. The world tried to civilize you, to shape your edges, to dull your instincts, to mold you into predictability. But the wild inside you would not go quietly. And now that untamed rhythm has become a force that others recognize, even if they can't name it. Feminine women especially feel it, not with their minds, but with their bones. There is a knowing in their bodies when you are near, a remembrance of a time when the feminine too was wild, unashamed, and whole. Your presence doesn't seduce with tactics, it seduces with permission. You offer no chains, no contracts of personality, no mask to flatter expectations. You are not perfect, you are true, and that truth lives like a windstorm in your chest. You speak when something real rises, and you fall silent when the moment demands stillness. You laugh when joy bursts without needing reason. You disappear when you're done giving. You move when you are called from within. There is no false stability in you, and it is precisely that unpredictable integrity that makes the feminine feel safe. Because she knows she is with a man who will not lie to keep her. A man who will not flatter her into staying. A man who will only remain if the connection breathes with life. Your sexual energy is the natural byproduct of your inner wilderness. It is not an energy of hunger, it is an energy of invitation. Not a grasping, but a roaring, come closer if you dare. And the feminine does dare, because you do not chase, and that changes everything. When you speak, your tone carries the weight of someone who doesn't need anything from anyone. When you touch, it is with the hands of someone who has nothing to prove, nothing to claim. And that lack of need is intoxicating to her. It lets her unfold beside you, not to be possessed, but to be witnessed. And in that witnessing, she begins to remember the parts of herself she silenced long ago. You are the mirror she didn't know she was searching for. Not the kind that reflects her prettiest angle, but the one that shows her as whole. The one that says, you don't need to shrink here. You don't need to be soft just to be loved. You don't need to apologize for your storms. Because you, chosen one, have storms of your own. You carry them without shame. You have learned how to live with your lightning, how to channel your fire. And she feels it. Not as chaos, but as invitation to be fully herself. She doesn't want to control you. She wants to dance with the man who never needed to be tamed. Your freedom creates freedom in her. She begins to speak more boldly around you. She laughs more loudly. She touches her own skin differently. She dresses with instinct instead of strategy. Not because you've told her to, but because your way of being gives her permission. You've stopped asking the world to validate your movement, and in doing so, you've become a secret key for others to find their rhythm. Especially the feminine. She who has been told for too long to soften, to quiet, to dim, now feels what it means to come alive again. You are not the fire that burns to dominate. You are the fire that calls the tribe home. You are not the man who seeks power to control women. You are the man who walks in such power that women feel safe returning to their truth. You are the reminder that sensuality is not shameful, that desire is not manipulation, that sexual energy is not a weapon, it's a language of liberation, and with you, she speaks fluently. Not in words, but in breath, in gaze, in the quiet surrender of masks falling away. That is why women crave you, chosen one. Not because of your body, though it may be strong, not because of your eyes, though they may be striking, but because you have remembered yourself, and that remembrance pulses through you like a song older than time. And when she stands near you, she remembers herself too. You are not just the man she wants to touch, you are the man she wants to touch the world beside. Because you are not the endpoint. You are the beginning of a return to the wildness she never meant to abandon. There is a way you walk, chosen one, that tells the world you belong only to what is true. You may share moments, you may offer presence, you may give deeply, but you do not belong to anyone. And that refusal to be claimed is what makes your spirit feel like lightning wrapped in calm. You do not fear intimacy, but you do not surrender to possession. And this paradox, open-hearted yet uncatchable, strikes at the core of the feminine soul, like a storm breaking open the sky. Women do not desire you because you are available. They desire you because you are whole. Your wholeness is not an act of withdrawal. It is a declaration, a quiet, undeniable knowing that your value does not fluctuate with how much attention you receive, that your worth is not for sale, that you are not a man who trades his fire to be liked, nor one who dims his energy just to keep peace. This kind of presence is rare, and it feels different to a woman's body because it cannot be possessed, only met, only matched. And that is what makes your presence sacred. You don't flirt to prove. You don't speak to charm. You speak when you mean it. You connect because it's real, and you walk away when it's not, without apology. You do not collapse when misunderstood. You do not try to fix someone's perception of you. You live with the inner knowing that you are responsible only for the truth you carry, not for how others interpret it. That sovereign state of being is erotic in a way most cannot explain. It bypasses the mind. It enters the soul. She watches the way you do not rush, the way you do not cling. The way you can look into her eyes and see her, then look away with peace in your chest. Not because you're disinterested, but because you are centered. You do not need to claim her to feel valuable. You do not need her to need you. Your sexual energy is not a hook, it's a field. A force that envelops but does not bind. A fire that warms but does not burn. You are magnetic, not because you hold on, but because you are willing to let go. This is what changes her, not the seduction, the space. The steadiness of knowing that even if she walked away, you would still be full. Even if she desired you but didn't stay, you would still walk with the same rhythm, the same purpose, the same inner richness. Because your life is not built around conquest, it is built around alignment. And that alignment radiates a sexual presence that needs no explanation. It is felt in the stillness between words, in the unspoken promise that you are here because you choose to be, not because you have to be. Women are not used to this. They are used to being pursued, possessed, controlled. But with you, there is no net, there is no game, there is only freedom meeting freedom. And that, paradoxically, is what makes them want to stay. Not because you asked, not because you tried to win them, but because you stood as yourself, untouched by performance, unconcerned by outcome. In that stance, you became the home they forgot they were looking for. This is how you live now. Chosen one. Not as a man who resists connection, but as a man who honors it too deeply to fake it. You give without attachment. You love without needing reward. You touch without gripping. You listen without planning, and in doing so, you offer something the feminine rarely experiences, the safety of a man who will not betray himself to keep her. That is why they are drawn to you. That is why they ache for your presence. That is why they keep coming back, not because you promise forever, but because you are fully present now. You have become the man whose value is not increased by being claimed, but whose presence increases the value of every moment he shares. Chosen one, there is something about your freedom that no cage has ever tasted. Not because you fight it, but because you have become so vast that nothing can contain you. You are not defiant in the way of loud resistance. You are defiant in the way of nature. The river does not apologize for changing course. The wind does not ask permission to move. And you now live from that same current, flowing with instinct, responding to truth, never lingering where your spirit no longer breathes. Feminine women feel that in your essence. You are not evasive, you are unguardable. You are not unstable, you are untethered from the shallow roots of validation. This is why your presence feels like a permission slip torn from the heavens. You are not here to convince anyone of your worth. You are not molding yourself for acceptance. You are living from within. And the sexual energy that pulses from that truth is like wild honey. Thick, golden, slow, impossible to fake. It sticks to the memory of everyone who touches it. Because you are not offering sugar, you are offering essence. You do not beg to be chosen, and that is precisely why you are. You walk like a man who could have the world but only carries what he loves. You smile like someone who has danced with life and found that he doesn't need to hold it still. And that kind of lightness is impossible to imitate. Feminine women feel both a tension and a release around you. Tension because they cannot predict you. Release because they don't have to perform to reach you. You are not a man who gets stuck, not in his past, not in his pain, not in anyone's web of expectation. And that fluidity is erotic, not because it seduces, but because it liberates. You don't follow rules, you follow rhythm. You don't ask, what should I say? You ask, what is real now? You're not walking through life trying to be liked. You're walking through life being free. And that freedom whispers to every woman you meet, you can be free too. Your power is not in how tightly you hold. It's in how deeply you feel without needing to possess. You do not need forever to make a moment eternal. You do not need to control to create intimacy. You just are, and that beingness radiates warmth, play, depth, and safety all at once. Your sexual energy is not something you weaponize. It's something you allow to move through you. It dances when you laugh. It slows when you breathe. It deepens when you look into her eyes with no plan, except to feel what is real. And when you leave, you do not ghost, you simply complete. Not because you fear closeness, but because you honor alignment. You do not linger where your heart has already outgrown the conversation. You move like a soul that trusts the universe to fill the space left behind, and the feminine reveres this in you, not because it is easy, but because it is honest. And in your honesty, there is rest. You are not addicted to closure, you are addicted to truth. And in that addiction, you have built a life that never stiffens, never performs, never folds under pressure to be anything less than alive. That is why you're unforgettable, chosen one. You are not the man who chased, you are the man who led with freedom. And in that freedom, women do not feel abandoned, they feel invited to rise. Chosen one, there is a fire in you now that is not dangerous, but holy. It is not the fire of destruction. It is the fire of illumination, the kind that makes others see themselves more clearly when they stand close to you. You've stopped using your heat to incinerate and started using it to awaken. And the feminine feels that, not as threat, but as safety. You're not here to burn her down. You're here to warm the places in her she thought had gone cold forever. Your sexual energy is no longer wild and aimless. It is anchored in meaning. You don't spread it recklessly. You don't wield it to manipulate. You carry it like firewood through a winter storm, protecting it, feeding it, letting it grow with intention. And when you share it, you do so not to conquer, but to communicate. With your energy, with your eyes, with your way of listening deeper than most people dare to speak. Women sense this care in the way you look at them. Not as if they are a prize, but as if they are a language you've spent lifetimes learning to hear. You don't listen for openings to seduce. You listen to understand where their fire hides. And when they realize that you're not rushing, not pressing, not performing, that you're simply there, curious, alive, and deeply present, they begin to melt. Not because you tried to melt them, but because your fire is safe enough to do so. This is rare. Most men come too close, too fast, with too much hunger and not enough presence. But you are different. You radiate patience. You exude stillness. You are not waiting for a signal to move. You are listening for the invitation only she can give. And even then, you treat that invitation not as a door to break down, but as a sacred threshold you will not cross without reverence. That is why she craves you. Not because you're dangerous, but because you're disciplined in your power.